Good morning, everyone. My name is Mighty Stream, and I'm going to do your February the 12th spiritual principle a day in a meditation. You can reach me at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Let's see. Okay. Surrender in Tradition 1, February 12th. Surrender to the first edition brings us to understand that we are part of something much greater than ourselves. That is taken from Guiding Principles, Tradition 1, Spiritual Principles. When we heard the 12 traditions read aloud the first several times, maybe even the first 1,000 times, the first tradition sounded like some sort of recovery jargon to our newcomer ears. Am I supposed to put NA's common welfare ahead of my own? Really? To many of us, common welfare was a new concept. Because we consistently been self-obsessed in our disease, we hadn't thought of ourselves as part of any whole, and that was fine with us. During our first days clean, the NA Fellowship's collective whole wasn't something we imagined being a part of or even caring about. In time, we began to surrender to the truth that we need each other to stay clean. We got a glimpse of the reciprocal relationship between personal recovery and NA unity. We realized that we're part of a worldwide fellowship made up of tens of thousands of groups with literature available in scores of languages. Wow, all I wanted to do was quit using drugs. I can't, but we can, underpins the first tradition. As our recovery deepens, our capacity to surrender to the principle of unity evolves and becomes more fluid. Surrendering to the needs of the group takes precedence over our desire to get our way at whatever cost. Many of us who struggle with the ideal of a God working in our lives can surrender to the ideal that the power of the group supports us. We begin to understand how our investment in something greater than ourselves through service improves our own lives and increases our feelings of self-worth. And something as basic as seeing a key tag with its clean and serene message etched in an unfamiliar language becomes awe-inspiring to us. As I continue to surrender in my recovery, I will take a moment to embrace the uncomplicated ideal that I am part of NA, just as NA is a part of me. I'll say a prayer. I'll say a prayer for an addict who lives thousands of miles from me as a way to honor and practice Tradition 1. I like that. I stumbled a little bit there, but I like that. I like that surrender in Tradition 1 is a process. I like that this particular meditation is keeping it honest, it's keeping it 100, it's being very authentic about the experience of the newcomer. And not that we haven't always been able to do that, because obviously we have. We just received this spiritual principle a day in a meditation. So it's the fruit of a lot of work, decades and decades and decades of work. So we are relatable. What we have in our literature is authentic, is genuine. Otherwise, the impact wouldn't be what it is, right? We wouldn't be here today with this meditation if the impact of our message and our literature, our fellowship, our meetings, our groups, our one-on-ones, our sponsorship, our events, our conventions, if they weren't meaningful and didn't carry weight, we would not be here today. So I just see the fellowship, we can only go up from here. And I like that this meditation is very authentic about the experience of the newcomer. Because when you're talking about traditions, typically people have a tendency to avoid anything to do with the tradition. So we read them, right? The 12 traditions of NA. We hear the readings. We can probably quote them by rote. We hear them every meeting, but very few of us ever actually dig into them. And I would like to encourage you today to do just that. I want you to be thinking about the impact of tradition one and how you eventually surrendered to it. When did you stop worrying about yourself? When did you become a part of the greater whole? Because you remember when you say you are, right? There's only one requirement for that, the desire to stop using. But when did you throw your whole self in to this recovery thing, where others and the welfare of others became a concern for you? Or hasn't it happened yet? Has it not happened yet? And if it hasn't happened for you yet, for the unity, right? Our personal recovery depends on NA unity. So when did your participation in the unity become obvious to you? I can tell you mine, if that's helpful. I was living in a city called well, I won't quote the city, but I was living in Indiana. And I had a sister and a niece that uh, from my hometown, and they were a part of that particular home group. So in order to be able to get to them, I would have to drive 70 miles. And this back when the speed limit was like 55, right? So in order to make a meeting, I would leave town and I would come up to our hometown and make a meeting. But there was a really bad day for me, and I didn't really have enough time to get in the vehicle and make a meeting before using. So I was already clean. I was already making meetings, not a lot of them, mind you. I was not making a lot of meetings at all. But I would treat myself to a meeting once a month at least and go out of town and make this meeting in my hometown. But this one particular day was not going my way. And I knew that I was going to use. And just out of frustration and not knowing what to do, I bowed my head, pulled over on the side of the road, bowed my head, and I prayed with my head on top of my steering wheel, crying out to God, please, please, please. I have over a year. I do not want to go back to where I came from. This is crazy. And when I lift my head up from praying, I looked over to the left, and directly across the street was a white building entitled the Lighthouse. And I bolted out of my vehicle and bolted into that building, and the secretary was there, and I startled her and I said, I need help. And she was like, what's going on, honey? And I told her that I was so broken and I just needed to get to a meeting, but I could not go to my hometown. It was too far away. I didn't trust myself to drive myself safe. And she said, I want you to go out here and get on this highway. It's right here. Go left, go up to the light, do this, and drive for 20 minutes on this road. And you will end up in this other town, and they have a meeting that is going to start in less than an hour. And I did exactly what that lady told me to do. And I was able to find meetings that were closer to me, more accessible. And immediately from that experience, I figured out that the GSR was really using and taking advantage of the women because it was at a YWCA, the meeting. And I could see with my own two eyes that a lot of women were being taken advantage of by this person in charge of the meeting. And I immediately made up my mind that I am going to bring what I have to the table here. And I started chairing, I became GSRA, became GSR, and that's how that worked for me. Was in my own desperation because of the unity, I was able to get to a meeting to save my life. And in that meeting, I saw that other people needed someone to step up and make it the true essence of Narcotics Anonymous. And that's my story. I'm sticking with it. I can remember the day and the time that that took place for me, that I began to be worried about or participate in recovery from the tradition one point of view. And I want to know, what's your story? Leave it in the comments or email me. I really want to know. When did you surrender to tradition one? When did it become a factor for you, or has it not become a factor? Why not? And we can talk about that. Have a beautiful day on purpose. I intend to. Thank you.